All right, so first things first, just find a nice comfortable stance. So feet can be about hip or shoulder width distance apart. I'm going to move my block just a little bit so you'll be able to see my feet, but we're going to start with a little bit of bouncing. So we're just going to like pop our heels and find a little bit of a bounce. And you want to start to feel that bounce kind of come into your arms, your chest, your belly, your shoulders, but it should be a soft, loose, and gentle position. So we just want to start to feel a kind of vibrational sensation in the body. And the point of doing this tonight is not so much the bouncing, but when we make the bouncing stop, that feeling that you feel. So give a couple more moments just to come into that little bounce, let your arms shake, feel a little bit of jiggle in your fatty tissue, if you will. And then when you feel good and ready, let everything pause for a moment. Take a nice deep breath. Big, slow exhale. And then that feeling right there at the end of that exhale, that little letting go. Let's see if we can find that again. So find that bounce, give everything a good shake. Let your chest jiggle, belly jiggle, fat jiggle, arms jiggle, let your fingers jiggle, and you can even feel that vibration a little bit in your breath. Take one more good bounce here, and then let everything come to stillness. Take a deep breath in, and a nice slow breath out. And then that nice softening right there at the end, if we can find that one more time, give everything a good giant bounce, let everything shake. And that softness right at the end when we stop on that bouncing, that's what we're looking for. So bounce, get that vibration going in the body. And then let that come to stillness, big deep breath in. And slow breath out. Awesome. And then can you hang out here just for a second, eyes closed or gaze soft, whichever feels more appropriate. And then just tune in. Notice how your body feels right now. Notice where your mind is at. And notice how you're feeling physically. So our first position we're going to take is a forward fold with a wide leg stance. So if you feel like hanging out upside down for about 3 minutes might not be for you tonight, then I'll say just take it down to the ground, nice wide leg seat, and you'll fold over from there. If you want to fold over from a standing position, you're going to find a nice wide stance. So step your feet about 3.5 feet apart and take your block with you. And you're just going to place the block in front of you so your hands have a good place to rest. And then you're going to soften your elbows, soften the back of your neck, soften your knees, let everything kind of find a nice soft folded shape. And then come back to your breath. Nice deep breath in and slow breath out. Starting to find some soft looseness in the back of the neck. So hopefully you're allowing your crown of your head to soften towards the earth. And then gaze is behind you or down at the floor at the tail end of your mat, whatever you're looking towards. And then now see if you can start to let go a little bit of any gripping that you might be holding in your legs. So if you're holding a lot of tension in your inner thighs, kneecaps, or feet, can you soften just a little bit? And then don't worry so much about what your shape looks like here, but notice sensation. So pay attention to your breath. Are you breathing with ease? Can you take a nice deep inhale and a nice slow exhale? So in our yin practice, we come into a pose, we hold it for a length of time, and then we come out of the pose gently and slowly. But all within that time, we want to make sure that we stay safe and comfortable in our body. So we're putting a positive stress on the connective tissue, on the ligaments and the joints, but we want to make sure that we're still staying tuned into ourselves and knowing what feels appropriate. So if at any point you need to come out of any pose, you take care of yourself and you do what feels right. So we're already a little over halfway through our hold in this posture. And if it feels like the block isn't helping assist anymore and you want to go a little deeper into your fold, you can always release your hands from your block, let them touch the floor and hang a little heavier. But if it feels like it's become too much and coming a little higher would be better for you, do the thing that feels right. So either lower down or come up higher or stay exactly as you were. Take one more breath here. And then we're going to come up nice and slow. So think about softening your knees, gently pushing up away from the floor. Come up slowly, gently, mindfully. Give your body a moment. Let your blood pressure come back to normal. Take a couple of little shrugs of your shoulders, and then work out any little aches or pains that you may have come across in your hips and your inner thighs or your feet. Now we're going to take it down into our low squat. So if a low squat feels totally comfortable to you and you can just sink into that position, awesome. If you prefer a little bit more support, think about putting your block or your little stack of books at the tallest setting to start, and then sit your butt onto that block. And then you can play around with rearranging. So maybe it feels good to be a little shorter, whatever the case may be. Or like I said, if you like that low squat and it feels comfortable to you, take it here, get settled in, and then just let your hands hang heavy towards the earth, and a little softening to the back of your neck so that you can just kind of hang out in this little bit of a slouchy upper body position. Now, if all of that I just showed you didn't feel like it's the best place for you to be, you're going to sit your butt down onto the ground. You're going to walk your heels a little closer, and then you're going to hug your arms to the inner thighs, and then find that softening there. And you're going to let your feet relax, and you're going to come back to your breath. Nice slow inhalation and soft exhalation. So you're going to take the variation that you like best in your body, and then see if you can find that stillness again. We've already been in this pose for 1 minute, so just tune in, notice how you're feeling, make any adjustments that you need so that you feel comfortable. And then see if you can just set your awareness back at your breath. Watch your breath come in and watch your breath go out. So take a quick little inventory down to your toes and your feet, and just notice, are you gripping tension in your toes? Can you soften your toes? Can you soften your fingers? Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, slowly start to come down onto the ground. So just set your butt down, rearrange your legs, get off your block, do all the work that you need to do to come down onto your seat, and then just give everything a little wiggle. Wiggle out your knees, wiggle out your toes, wiggle out your ankles, mush everything around. From here, we're going to come into an easy seat. So Sukhasana, cross your legs. But the really fun part here is you want to make a little bit of extra space so that you can put your fingers between your toes. So say my left hand is going to go over to my right foot, and my right hand's going to go over to my left foot. And I'm going to catch from underneath. And like you're getting a little pedicure, you're going to just put your fingers between your toes, like you're getting a little toe separator. And then works a little harder to get the other hand in so you don't have the assist. So once you've got your fingers in between your toes, rearrange your Sukhasana, or your easy seat, and then you're going to fold yourself over. You're just going to fold as far as feels comfortable. And you have the option here to place the block in front of you, almost as if you're bringing the floor up to meet you a little bit so your forehead can rest there. So if that feels like a way to go, put your block in front of you, get your toes all settled in, and then find your folded easy seat and settle in. Find a little stillness. Let everything quiet down. Since this is a new one for us, especially with our fingers between the toes, we're just going to take 2 minutes on each side. So allow yourself to settle in. And then for some of us, this might feel a little intense with with the fingers between the toes. So give your feet a few moments to relax around your fingers. Let the bottoms of your feet soften. Invite some softness into your jaw. Take one more nice deep breath. And then we're going to come up nice and slow, gently lifting yourself up. And we're just going to pay attention for a second which leg is in front. Release your fingers from your toes. And now you're just going to switch the cross in your legs and then rearrange your easy seat. And then see if you can come back to putting your fingers in between your toes. And it should be a little bit easier this time, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then placing your fingers between your toes. Once you've got yourself all settled in and rearranged, then come right back to that easy seated fold. And notice one side might feel totally different than the other. So just take a second to notice that. Your easy seat might feel a little different. The fingers between the toes might feel a little different. The arrangement of your arms and your elbows might feel a little bit different. So give yourself a second to settle in. And then once you feel like you've got a little settling in position, take a nice deep inhale. And at the end of your exhale, can you find that softening sensation that we found at our bounce? Inviting some softness into the back of the shoulders, the back of the neck. Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, gently lift yourself up and away. Slowly and mindfully release your fingers from between your toes. Give your toes a little wiggle. Release your easy seat and bend your knees a lot. And just take a couple of gentle windshield wipers here with the knees. Just move into the hips. Wiggle out any tension you may have come across in the knees. Wiggle your ankles if you need to. Anything that works out that little dough lake that you might come across when you hold these postures for a little bit longer. Cool. Now from here, we're going to take it into a zigzag seat. So think left leg in front, right leg out to the side, and then we're going to rotate to the left. You can take your block with you if you like, and it helps just kind of bring the floor up to you so that you can twist and rotate and then let your forearms and elbows rest on the block. But if you've got enough flexibility and plenty of room, you can always bring the elbows and forearms down to the ground or go as deep as you like. You want to find an edge, stay there, and find your stillness. So find your rotation. Give a few moments to settle in. Make sure there's space for the belly. Make sure there's space for your chest. And as you resolve into your stillness here, start to tune in a little bit to your side body. So maybe notice the right side of your body, the ribs and the skin around the ribs. So if we've got this nice twisting action going on, you might notice there's a slight bit of constriction as you breathe in and breathe out. So within that constriction that happens naturally when you twist the body, where can you free up some room for the breath to come in? Can you find that softening in the upper back body? That letting go sensation that happens on the exhale? Take one more breath here. And then we'll slowly start to come up and unwind. So rotate back to center. And then if you can, keep this front leg in its configuration. And we're going to think about sliding the other leg back. So we're going to come into a pigeon pose from here. So if it feels comfortable and available, you're just going to swing that leg back and around and send it out nice and long. And I'll turn sideways just so that you get an idea of what I mean. So if my leg was out to the side, I'm just going to lean in a little bit and scooch that leg around. Now, pigeon pose is not the pose for everybody. So if your knees do not love pigeon pose, stay with your zigzag seat and fold over from there. But if you love pigeon, and I do, you're going to slide that leg back Rearrange your knee so everything feels comfortable, and then settle in. Now notice the hip that's bent or the leg that's in front. If that hip is way up in the air, you can always take your block and scooch it under your bum, and it helps bring the floor up to meet and support that side. But if it feels good right where you're at, then we settle right back in and resolve back into your stillness. Take a second to make sure everything's rearranged in a way that feels comfortable. No shooting pain, no electric pain. If there's any sharp pain, you'll want to come out, assess, and then make some changes so that everything feels good. So in our Yin Yoga, since we come into our practice cold, it helps us get to the connective tissue a little faster. So we don't have to work through the muscles. The muscles are cold, and we find our way to the connective tissue right away. So think about just bringing some sense of awareness to the hip, the leg that's in front, just noticing that side hip, making sure that the knee feels safe and comfortable. And then tune into your breath. Are you breathing in with ease? Can you exhale nice and slow? And if you're in that straight pigeon configuration, that leg that's behind you, maybe your right leg, just notice that back knee. Is it feeling comfortable and in a good position? Or do you need to curl the back toes under, lift the knee, rearrange it, and then set it all back down? Take a moment to notice if you're holding tension in your hands. Can you soften your fingers? Can you soften your toes? Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, we'll slowly come up and out. So think about walking your hands up and in, and then swivel over onto that hip so you can swing your legs out in front of you nice and long, and then just give everything a good bounce. Wiggle out those knees, wiggle out those ankles, shake everything out. Maybe take a couple of windshield wipers just to massage out the bum. But now we've got to take all of that stuff that we just did to the other side. So think about swinging your legs over to the left. So now right leg will be front, left leg out to the side, and then we're going to twist and rotate to the right. So if you like using your block, just take your block, place it over onto the other side, and then find your rotation. Elbows and forearms on the block, elbows and forearms down on the ground, or arms reach nice and long if you can sink that deep into it. So you're going to find the shape is appropriate for your body. And then once you've got yourself set up, resolve back into your stillness. Take a moment here to tune back into your breath. So we let our breath be our barometer. So we'll know what's going on. So if you're breathing with effort, if every breath is a struggle, dial anything back that you can so that you can breathe nice and comfortably. And then as we tune into the breath here, maybe let your awareness now come to the left side body. So noticing that when we come into those twisted positions, that we do find a little bit of constriction in the breath. So where within that constriction can you free things up? Can you make a little space and deepen your breath? Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, slowly start to come up and out. Unwind, take a second, notice that little bit of a whooshing sensation as the blood, fresh wave of blood comes up and in through all those places that were constricted. And then we're going to take it into our pigeon pose. So if you like, just swing that leg back behind you if you're coming into the pigeon with your leg extended, or just keep it in that zigzag seat and fold yourself over from here. So whichever configuration you liked best that suits your body, take a second, find your shape, and then notice here. So if that leg that's bent in front of you, if that hip is way up and it needs a little support, you can always take your block, tuck it under your bum, and let the floor come up to meet you just a little bit. So find your shape and then resolve back into your stillness. Find a little softness, a little bit of comfort. Take a nice deep breath and right away notice, how is everything feeling? We want to avoid any shooting pain, electric pain, or sharp pain. So if any of that is going on, where can you reassess? What can you fix? But everything feels right as rain. Take a second to settle in, find some softness here. Soften your hands, soften your feet, soften into your breath. We've already been here for a minute, so just tune in, check in. How is that back knee feeling? Does it need to be rearranged? Is there anything that can be softened there? Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, we'll slowly come up and out. So think about lifting yourself up, shift yourself around. We're going to swing both legs out in front of us. So swing your legs around in any way that feels like a good way to go for you. And then once you've got your legs out in front of you, give everything a nice good jiggle and a wiggle. Wiggle out your knees, find some internal, external rotation of the thighs, a little wiggle of the toes, a little wiggle of the ankles, and just work out any of that dull ache that you may have found. Super. And now from here, we're going to take it into a forward fold. So we're going to let the legs be long. We're going to situate our sits bones so that they're underneath us. And then we're just going to fold right over top of the legs. You're going to let your legs fall out to the left and to the right, or pigeon toe in, whichever your legs naturally tend to fall. You're going to find a little softness here. So you're not going to worry about what your shape looks like, and no efforting or reaching and gripping, but letting everything go. So soften the upper back body, soften the back of your neck. We've been here for 1 minute already, so just notice how everything's feeling. Does it feel like your body's asking to go a little deeper? Can you create a little bit more space and sink a little bit lower? Or has it become a little too intense and you need to dial some things back and come up a little taller? So check in, notice how you're feeling, and then settle into the place that feels right to you. See if you can invite some softness back into your jaw. On an exhale, can you find that letting go sensation that we found when we bounced? Are you gripping in your ankles or your heels? Can you soften there? Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, we'll come up nice and slow. So gently start to lift and walk yourself up. Walk your knees in. Take your hands behind you, fingers pointing toward your bum, and then press into your hands and just lift your chest. Get a little gentle back bend. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Lift your chin and just open through the front of the body. Nice. And then when you're ready, release. And we're going to find our way into a little bit of a lunge. So think about coming first into a little bit of a tabletop position and just check in. Notice how your knees feel here. So if knees down feels a little tender, take a second to double stack your mat. So you have a little bit of extra cushion, and then find your block, because we're going to let that help bring the floor up to meet us. So I'm going to step my right leg forward into my lunge position, and I'm going to take my block off to the side. We're going to side bend, and we're going to just let the block or our books be a little bit of a support team. So bringing my right hand down onto the block and taking my left hand and reaching up and overhead. So the goal here is to find a little stretch right through that side body, especially in that low area where the side body meets the hip. So if you can find that side bend there, don't worry too much about what your lunge looks like. So it doesn't have to be this deep, big lunge. It can be a little bit more squared up, and then find that side bend, hand on the block, and then just find a little bit of softness in that top arm. So you don't have to effort too terribly much here. The side bend should take care of itself. But now can you bring your awareness back to your breath? And then start to notice, does the lunge feel like it's not quite enough? Do you need to sink in deeper? Can you crawl your foot forward just a little bit and then shift your hips so that you find that deeper lunge that feels right to you? Or you're already there, it's quite enough, and you just want to find a little bit of extra length through the side of your body with a nice deep breath. And then take the time to notice here. So as you take that nice deep breath in, you might feel a slight wave of movement through your body, and then a shift as you exhale and let go. And if you can find and pay attention to that wave of the breath is the thing that's doing all the work for you here. So just notice that breath and see if you can deepen that inhale and slow your exhale down. And then just check in, make sure that knee that's down on the ground feels safe and comfortable. If that top arm becomes too heavy, you can still maintain that side bend, and you can bring your fingers to your shoulder or drop it down to the hip, and then think about maybe bringing that hand to your hip and then lengthening downward. So you could even imagine pushing your hand down into that hip joint and then finding the side bend still. So you still get all the work done without the heaviness of the top hand. But if it felt good to keep it up there, keep it up there as long as you like. Awesome. Take one more breath. Beautiful. And then if that hand is still up and overhead, go ahead and gently bring it down. Lift yourself up and come into that lunge for a second. And then just with that lunge, sink your hips a little bit forward and then pull the hips back. Now set your hands down on the ground and we're going to rearrange. So find that tabletop shape, take a couple little bops of the hips, make sure everything feels good. Work out any of that dull ache that we come across when we come up and out of those poses. And then when you feel good and ready, we'll set it up to the other side. So stepping that left foot forward, find your lunge, block to the outside, left side of the floor, place it in a position that feels right so that you can find a good reach. And then that top hand's going to reach up and over and find your side bend here. And don't worry too much about what your lunge looks like. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just needs to feel comfortable and sustainable. So make sure that the knee on the ground feels cushioned and happy. Tune into your breath for a moment and just notice, are you breathing comfortably? Nice slow exhale, nice slow inhale. So we're about halfway through our hold here. So if your lunge wants more, you can always lean in and dig a little deeper into that lunge. If it feels like it's too much, you can always crawl that front foot back a little bit, soften everything up. If that top arm has started to get a little too heavy, think about bringing it to the hip, pressing down into the hip and then creating a little bit extra space. But if it felt good to leave it up, you do you. Do the one that feels the best to you. Beautiful. Take one more breath here. If that hand is still up and overhead, gently release it down. Start to slowly and mindfully come up and out of that little side bend. And then just take a little dip forward just to bring a little extra stretch right through the front of that hip. And then pull it back, set your hands down, and find your way into a tabletop shape. Once you've got your tabletop shape arranged, just take a couple of bops of those hips side to side. We're going to bring the big toes together, take your knees nice and wide to the outer edges of your mat, and come right into extended child's pose. Pull your butt back to your heels, and let your belly, your chest, your forehead, everything soften down towards the earth. Settle right back into your breath. Soften your heart down, soften your forehead down. And then if it feels like you want a little extra support, you can always bring your block in, place it under your head, and just allow your forehead to rest there if that feels like a nice way to go. Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, nice and slow, start to come up and out of that child's pose. So lift your bum up away from your heels, walk your knees in, shake out your tush, wiggle out your toes, bring a little blood back down to your feet and to your toes. We're going to swing around onto our backside. So come on down in any fashion that feels right to you. Lower yourself onto your back, and we're going to take our block width so that we can settle in into a nice supported bridge. So as you lower yourself down onto the ground, feet are going to be about hip width distance apart. Heels are going to come a little closer to your butt. I personally like my block on the medium setting. It feels good to my proportions, but I always suggest starting with the lowest setting of the block just so that you can find what feels the best to your body. And then if it feels like you could use a little bit more height, then you can flip it onto the medium setting or even on tall, especially if you're tall. So think about pressing into your feet, lift your hips up, and then slide that block or your books, whatever you've got, slide it under your butt. So it's under your tailbone and under your hip bones. We want to be able to settle the weight of our hips onto that block or our books so that it feels good and supportive. So we don't want it in the low back because the low back doesn't have a lot of structure that can help keep it supported. So we've got it under our butt, under our hips, and then give a second to just let the hips get heavy onto your block or your books. Notice if it feels comfortable. It should feel really supportive. If it doesn't feel like you're grounded and supported, make sure you make some arrangements so everything feels good and comfortable. No corners of your blocks or your books jamming into your skin or your flesh. And then once you've got yourself set up, see if you can soften your shoulder heads down. Relax the muscles in the thighs and the muscles around the knees. If you have your block on the lowest setting and it feels like not quite enough for you and you wish that you could have a little bit more, you can always lift your butt up, flip the block to the medium setting, and then settle your hips back onto the block. If that feels like it's too much, lift your hips up, flip the block low, and settle back into that lower position. And then once you've got your block in a good place, everything's feeling good, thigh muscles are softening, belly is releasing and getting soft, shoulder heads are relaxing into the earth, arms are in a comfortable position. Think about tucking your chin slightly in, almost as if you're trying to make a double chin. So we want to tuck the chin just slightly, but you should still be able to breathe comfortably and swallow. So make sure everything feels good and arranged. And then let your awareness come down to your feet and notice, are you gripping in your toes? Are you gripping in the bottoms of your feet? Can you give your toes a little wiggle? Mush around the bottoms of the feet, make sure they feel soft and good, and then let them soften into a stillness. Smoothing out the tops of the feet, softening the ankles. Invite softness into the calves and the shins. And now can you tune into your pelvis? So think about that bony structure and then go deep past into the structure below the boniness. So can you think about that pelvic floor as a bowl of muscles? Can you allow those muscles to soften? Take a nice deep breath in, let the belly expand and fill up like a balloon. And exhale, let all of that air go, let the pelvic floor be soft and let the belly be loose. Beautiful. Now you might be totally happy here in this supported bridge and it might feel really great. And if you are, stay here and do the work. But if you sit in a chair all day or most of your day and you have a lot of tightness in the front of your hips, if your block is on the low setting and if it feels nice to you, You can always walk your legs long to the end of your mat. And then you might start to feel a nice gentle stretch through the front of those hips, but only if that feels good and that if it feels safe for your low back, because you do have to offer just a little bit of firmness to support the low back here. So if that feels like a nice position for you to be in, you can walk your legs long and then come back to finding a little bit of that softness through the front of the hips, softness in the low belly, a little bit of softness in the feet and the tops of the thighs. Notice if you're holding tension in the jaw, see if you can let go there. If you walked your legs long and you're finding it's not the position you want to be in, walk your feet back in, come back to that supported bridge. Whichever position you're in the bridge or with your feet extended long, take one more nice deep breath. And then if your feet are extended long, go ahead and start to gently walk them back in. Pause in that bridge for a second. And then from here, pressing firm into the feet, lift your hips up away from the block. Remove the block out from underneath you and slowly, gently, mindfully lower your back down onto the ground. And then once your hips touch the ground, pause just for a moment. Take that nice big breath. Exhale, and can you find that softening on the end of your exhale? Awesome. And then pull both knees into your chest. Give yourself a nice gentle squeeze, a little bit of a gentle rock side to side if it feels appropriate and nice to your body. And then if it feels really good, draw your knees in circles, go in one direction. And if you're drawing your knees in circles, maybe switch directions and draw your circles the other way. Awesome. And then from here, we're going to take it into a little legs up the wall just to bring a little vibration back into the body. So send your feet up towards the ceiling, but allow for a gentle bend in the knees. Soften your tailbone, soften your belly, soften your shoulders. Just make sure everything feels good and snuggled in. And then we're going to start to bring a light shake into the legs. So shake your legs so that you find that vibration again, just like what we did at the beginning where we had that little bounce. So see if you can find that sort of vibrational feeling, allowing for a softness in the muscle tissue as much as you can, a softness in the outer edges of your skin as much as you can, a looseness in the joints. So as you wiggle and jiggle those legs, you might feel that vibration down in your hips. You might feel it in your belly and your back. You might notice it in your breath, and you might even feel it up in your arms and your fingertips. So take a second to just tune in. Give your legs one more good solid shake, and then start to gently float your feet back down to the ground. Bend your knees. Once your feet touch the ground, let your knees just collapse in towards each other. So we're going to pause in a constructive rest position, and then see how that feels. So this might be a great place to take your Shavasana, snuggle in and get comfortable. Or if you prefer a more traditional shape, think about walking your legs nice and long. And then take a minute to just find a nice, comfortable position for your body where you can come into some stillness. And then give your mind and your body a moment to come together, to incorporate all the work that you've just done. Allow a moment to kind of work out all those little wiggles. Make sure your clothes feel comfortable, hair feels like it's in a good position. Work out those little wiggles in the fingers, wiggles in the toes, wiggles in the hips and the shoulders. And then take a nice deep inhale. And then as you exhale, at the end of that exhale, can you find that letting go sensation again? If it feels good and safe to do so, close your eyes or just soften your gaze and maybe find a little point on the wall or point on the ceiling that you can just let your eyes rest on. Allow your arms and legs to be nice and heavy. Allow your hands and feet to be soft. You always have the option to stay in your Shavasana as long as you like. But if you feel called to do so, allow your awareness to come back into your body. Gently wake up the fingers, wake up the toes, invite some gentle movement into your wrists, your ankles, your knees, your hips. And then if it feels really good to do it, take a big good morning stretch like a yawn. Stretch your arms up and overhead. Stretch long from fingers to toes. Feel the full length of your body. Take a nice deep breath in. And on your exhale, can you find that softening right at the end? Nice. And then when you're ready in your own way, find your way up to a seated position. Maybe you rock and roll up, maybe you roll to one side. Take your time, be gentle on yourself. Nice. And then as you find your way to a nice comfortable position, we're just going to take light fingertips to the chest and we're going to just give a nice good tap up and down the chest. Think about coming down to the sternum and up to the collarbones and just a nice light tapping motion. So we're not banging against ourselves, but just a nice gentle tapping up and down. And if you like, close your eyes down so you can listen in and feel and hear that tap inside yourself. Beautiful. Take one or two more times up and down. And then when you feel ready, bring your hands together at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Prayer hands together, bow your head to your heart. Breathing in love and gratitude for yourself, for your mind, for your body, and for the time you take to take care of yourself. Breathe in a little extra love and gratitude that you can carry with you through the rest of your night and share with everyone you see. Gently lift up through the top of your head. Gently open your eyes. I bow to you. Happy Wednesday.